and please accept our humble obeisances.
Jai Vanchakalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhyavach Avachitaram Paribhyo Vaishnavyabhyo Namo Namaha.
Okay, so we've done the Manglacharan, Mataji. So we are doing
Okay.
one. We'll hand it over to you, but we are
Yeah.
on 5-4.
Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Radha Madhava Yadha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Haribol Haribol Hari Bol, Gana Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gana Hari Bol. Jai Shri Shri Radha Madhav ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham ki Jai, Granthara Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaiham Dadati Swapadantikam Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukham karoti vachalam pangum rangayate girim Yatkrpatamaham vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam. So today, if I understood well, we have reached chapter 5, verse 4. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
It's progressing fast, isn't it?
Yes.
There are only 18 chapters. You better slow down.
Mataji, because it is the Kartik month, if it is possible, you can tell us about Damodarashtakam for a little while, or should we just reserve this for 5-4?
Okay, well, if you had told me before, that would have helped.
We can do it next week. Let's do Damodar Ashtakam next week.
Okay.
It will be in Kartik month.
Mm-hmm.
We just thought.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that would be better. That's better.
That's better.
Prashanta really can speak. You can't come during the week, Prashanta Prabhu?
I mean, the timing is
No.
very odd. That is the only
Yeah.
problem.
No. You can't come. You're not from Kenya because I forgot.
We can't hear you.
I thought it was just me.
The 8 o'clock is. No, it's okay. Carry on. Next. Just carry
We'll
on.
do Damodar Ashtakam. Today we'll do.
So
five.
what should I do, Kritika? What should I do?
5-4.
Should I do the Bhagavad Gita verse or?
Yes, 5-4, and next week we can do the Damodar Ashtakam. So it gives you enough.
Okay. All right. Very good. So we read the verse. This is verse 4. Sankhya Yoga Pritagbala Pravadante na Pandita Ekamapyastita Samyak Ubhayorvindate Phalam. We read the translation by Srila Prabhupada. Only the ignorant speak of devotional service or karma yoga as being different from the analytical study of the material world, also known as Sankhya Yoga. Those who are actually learned say that he who applies himself well to one of these paths achieves the result of both. We'll read the purport by Srila Prabhupada. The aim of the analytical study of the material world is to find the soul of existence. In other words, the aim of Sankhya Yoga. Those who are practicing Sankhya Yoga are very scrutinizingly observing the world on the basis of shastras such as the Upanishads, and they are trying to find the cause of existence. The soul of existence, or the soul of the material world, is Vishnu, or the super soul, a living being. Devotional service to the Lord entails service to the super soul. One process of Sankhya, is to find the root of the tree of existence. The Sankhya Yoga means searching for the root of the tree. And the other process is to water the root. So the Sankhya yogis, they're searching for the root, and the others, both karma yogis as well as bhakti yogis, they water the root of existence. In other words, they know the root. The Sankhyites, they don't know what is the root. They are looking for the root, searching for the root. Whereas those who practice karma yoga or bhakti yoga, they accept, first of all, through descending knowledge, the fact that beyond this material world is actually a personality. This is accepted by both the karma yogis and the bhakti yogis. There is a personality beyond this world, a transcendental personality. His name is revealed here as Vishnu. So there seems to be a little difference between the two, but it's not so much of a difference, because both of the yogas are dealing with the root of existence. So a little further, Srila Prabhupada says, the real student of Sankhya philosophy finds the root of the material world. In other words, he finds Vishnu. And then, in perfect knowledge, he engages himself in the service of the Lord. Therefore, in essence, there is no difference between the two processes, because the aim of both is one. The aim of both is Vishnu. So in one process, we are searching, and Prabhupada says they search, once they find, and then they switch to watering the root. Mhm. And the karmis and the buddhi yogis, the karma yogis, and the bhakti yogis, they already know that the root is Lord Vishnu. They have heard it in disciplic succession from the Vedic literatures. And they engage in a different process, which is the process of watering the root, which is meaning performing yagyas, offering the fruit of activities um, to Lord Vishnu, for those who are practicing karma yoga, and directly serving Krishna for those who are in bhakti yoga, which means they sacrifice their life, they give their life um, to serve, they give their time to directly serve Lord Krishna. So this is called watering the root. Those who do not know the ultimate and say that the purposes of Sankhya and Karma Yoga are not the same, those who do not know what the ultimate goal is, they say that the purposes of Sankhya and Karma Yoga are not the same. But one who is learned knows the unifying aim in these different processes. So this is the dilemma that we are dealing with here in chapter 5. Srila Prabhupada has given a whole summary of Krishna's presentation so far in the purport of the first verse to this chapter. He says in the second chapter, preliminary knowledge of the soul and its entanglement in the material body were explained. This was in chapter 2, uh, 11 to 30 or 33, the Gyan part of the second chapter. Explained thus that we are not this body, we are the soul. And it explained the nature of the material body, which is perishable, and the nature of the soul, which is eternal. And how to get out of this material engagement by buddhi yoga or devotional service was also explained therein. In the third chapter, it was explained that the person who is situated on the platform of knowledge no longer has any duties to perform. So we have heard different things over all these chapters. Hmm. This was verse 317. For one who takes pleasure in the self, whose human life is one of self-realization, and who is satisfied in the self only, fully satiated, for him there is no duty. In other words, there is no work to be performed. So this was explained in the third chapter. And in the fourth chapter, the Lord told Arjuna that all kinds of sacrificial work culminates in knowledge. So this was 4:33 particularly. O chastiser of the enemy, the sacrifice performed in knowledge is better than the mere sacrifice of material possessions. After all, O son of Pritha, all sacrifices of work culminate in transcendental knowledge. So this is what was explained. So it's a little confusing because on one hand it says by working in the spirit of sacrifice you attain knowledge. And then it says that one who has knowledge doesn't work. However, at the end of the fourth chapter, the Lord advised Arjuna to wake up and fight, being situated in perfect knowledge. Haha. So first he said those who are in knowledge, they don't have duties to perform. But then he advises him to fight. So Arjuna has gotten confused here. By simultaneously stressing the importance of both work in devotion or work in karma yoga and inaction in knowledge, Krishna has perplexed Arjuna and confused his determination. Arjuna understands that renunciation in knowledge involves cessation of all kinds of work performed as sense activities. But if one performs work in devotional service, then how is work stopped? In other words, Arjuna thinks that sannyas or renunciation in knowledge should be altogether free from all kind of activity because work and renunciation appear to him to be incompatible. So therefore, Arjuna has asked this question, oh Krishna, first you asked me to give up work, and then you asked me to work. So what should I understand? What is superior? Is it tyaga or sannyas? And in that sense, that here tyaga means that one works and one gives up tyaga, one gives up the result of one's work, of one's karma, uh, unto Lord Vishnu. And one who does that, he's performing karma yoga, and there are no reactions to his activities. So therefore, he's performing a kind of work which is known as akarma, the work that does not produce any material reactions. And then there is something else which is called karma sannyas. And it's another path altogether. In the Vedas, there are two paths. One is called pravritti, one is called nivritti. So, and one is the path of karma, and one is the path of jnana. So when we talk of this renouncing work, karma sannyas, renouncing work, that usually we mean taking up this path of jnana. And Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita will never advise that path, because he will give so many explanations why. It is unnatural for the soul uh, to stop all activities. It's simply unnatural. By nature, we are active. By nature, we have qualities that need to be engaged. Mm. So this complete renunciation of work, uh, that is not what Krishna is actually advising in the Bhagavad Gita. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna brings us from karma, mm, which generates reactions, to karma yoga, which does not generate reactions. And when it says here that the two, in chapter 4, it says that whether one follows the path of Gyan Yoga or the path of Karma Yoga, it leads to the same place. It leads to the same thing. So what is this here? That what is this same? Uh, what is this same destination, the same goal? Which means it has the same fruit. What is the fruit of Karma Yoga, which is similar to the fruit of Jnana Yoga? And that is, uh, Baladevi Bhushan says, it is seeing the Atma. It brings one to the level of knowledge, of being able to perceive the Atma, the existence of the soul. So in both cases, it's the very beginning of spiritual life. And Bhakti Yoga is a graduation beyond these two, karma and Sankhya. Beyond these two, there is Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga means the natural engagement of the soul in spiritual activity. Karma Yoga means the performance of material activities with the knowledge that Vishnu must be the beneficiary, and therefore one practices tyaga, which is giving up the fruit of one's activities, or at least partially giving up the fruits of one's activities to Lord Vishnu. And this makes our work akarma. Whereas those who are practicing jnana, they understand akarma to mean no work. No work. So if there is no work, there is also no reaction. But we will see that Krishna does not advise this path. It's very difficult. Mm. How to remain inactive. We cannot remain inactive for a single second. And we have to restrain ourselves to be inactive. Mm. Even if you lie down on your bed thinking, let me do nothing, it's Sunday, let me do nothing. So you lie on the bed, and what will happen? The physical activity will stop, but the mental activity will increase. So activity is there, either gross or subtle. And if you want to stop the mind from acting, that's much more difficult than just stopping the physical body. A physical body can be easily put to rest, but not the mind. So Buddhi Yoga means to really understand uh, our own position and the position of Krishna, the relationship between the two, and try to make a harmonious connection between us and the Lord. So Buddhi Yoga actually is a begins connecting one's intelligence with the Lord. That begins from the point of Karma Yoga, and it goes all the way to the topmost yoga, which is Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga means that we understand the Lord to be a person, and therefore we treat him as such. We talk to him, we give him gifts, we cook for him, we dress him in his form as the uh, deity. uh, So we deal with the Lord as a person. That is Bhakti Yoga. So here we are seeing that when one understands the goal, which is actually to please Lord Vishnu, or to know him, to know him. So then one understands that whether one practices Sankhya Yoga or whether one practices Karma Yoga, knowledge will be generated. This is the result of practicing these yogas, that it will generate knowledge. And Bhakti Yoga will also generate knowledge. Janayatyashu vairagyam jnanam cha yada haitukam. Bhakti Yoga also generates knowledge. In fact, it generates knowledge faster than any of the other processes. So you will see that in this, the title of this chapter is actually, Prabhupada calls it Karma Yoga. And then it's, and then the subtitle in English is Action in Krishna Consciousness. Krishna consciousness is in the sense that those who practice Karma Yoga, they do know that there is a personal reality, a personal God, a personal entity beyond this world, and that we are subservient to that entity, and that we can serve that entity. So that knowledge is there. So Karma Yoga action. So in that sense, Karma Yoga is action in Krishna consciousness, because it's recognizing, acknowledging the existence of Lord Vishnu. In the commentators on this chapter, they have given the name Karma Sannyas Yoga. Karma Sannyas Yoga. This is the title that has been given for this chapter. But you will find in this chapter that Srila Prabhupada will very generously use interchangeably the terms Karma Yoga, Buddhi Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. So even though the verse is talking mostly of Karma Yoga, Srila Prabhupada uses the word Bhakti Yoga. And there is no difficulty with that, in the sense that the ultimate form of karma is bhakti. That is the ultimate form of action. And Karma Yoga is the very beginning of spiritual life. Very, very beginning. Even though here Srila Prabhupada says that in Sankhya Yoga, one is searching for the root of existence, and in Karma Yoga, one is watering the root of existence. The Karma Yogis, they are also to some extent searching. They are searching because the Karma Yogis do not usually are people who are still quite in the bodily concept of life. Therefore, they are identified with their material bodies, and they are identified with the duties which are born from these material bodies. But they accept the ruling of Shastra, and so whatever fruit of their labor is there, they will offer this in sacrifice. And the result of offering things in sacrifice is knowledge. So the Karma Yogis are developing knowledge. And as the Karma Yogi becomes more and more and more enlightened, um, usually the Karma Yogi will switch to another yoga. It will switch to another form of yoga, which will be more um, directly connected to the Lord. Um, Karma Yoga means that we are performing our material duties. But when you come to Sankhya Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, um, these yogas are superior in the sense that the person who is practicing, the practitioner, has already come to the conclusion that he is not this body. Has come to that conclusion, and is trying to find out more about the nature of the soul. Of course, that knowledge culminates in bhakti when we understand that the soul is an active personal principle. Just as the Lord is a person, the Jiva Atma, is also a person. And Bhakti Yoga means that activity should be performed, but not activity based on our material designations. No. Whereas the duties of karma yogis vary according to their position in terms of varna and ashram. The occupation or the activities of bhakti yoga, they are not based on the material body. The same duties are there for everyone. What are the duties of bhakti yoga? Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, Smaranam Padasevanam, Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakhyamatma Nivedanam. So one who practices Bhakti Yoga spends his time chanting the glories of the Lord and hearing the glories of the Lord. And it doesn't matter whether the person is young or old, or um, belonging to a lower class of society or a so-called higher class of society. It doesn't depend on the gender. It doesn't depend on anything external. There is one blanket duty for all, and that is hear and chant about the Lord. And then there is remembering, and then there is serving the deity. So like this, there are different practices of bhakti yoga. They are not meant at all uh, for maintenance of the body. That's a big difference between karma and bhakti. That the activities of karma are meant to maintain this material body, whereas the activities of bhakti, they are not meant to maintain this material body. They are simply meant for the soul to connect with the Lord. And we are directly engaged in the service of the Lord, including that material body that we have. It becomes completely purified and spiritualized by the practice of Bhakti Yoga. So here we see that, as I said, the Karma Yogis, once they come to the level of knowledge, they move on to another kind of yoga, because Karma Yoga cannot actually lead one to the complete realization of the Supreme Lord. The actual transcendental yogas are Jnana Yoga, which is also called Sankhya Yoga, as in this verse here, Ashtanga Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Those three yogas are the actual transcendental path of existence. And usually, and all of them lead to knowledge of the Supreme. But usually the path of Sankhya and the path of Gyan will lead one to some impersonal understanding of the realization of Brahman. Um, Ashtanga Yoga is also called Paramatma Yoga, and it will lead to the discovery of the Lord of the heart, the Lord in the heart, that accompanies the living entities on their journey through the material world. And Bhakti Yoga will generate knowledge of Adipurusham, of the original Lord. And so the goal of the three yogas is Krishna, but as we have heard, Krishna has different features. He has three features. He has three features: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And those yogas are going to lead to different aspects, different realizations of the absolute truth. So we will see that the karma yogi has to move on to one of those yogas in order to actually come to the realization of the Supreme Lord. And Krishna will not recommend Jnana Yoga as the next step. He will not recommend that. We will see how the Bhagavad Gita unfolds. After chapter 5 comes chapter 6. And what is chapter 6? It is Ashtanga Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, or Ashtanga Yoga. And that's where Krishna is leading, that you can practice Ashtanga Yoga to realize the personality of Godhead within the heart. But then as the Bhagavad Gita progresses further in 7 and 8 and 9, Krishna is actually going to teach us that a good Ashtanga yogi actually comes to the point of bhakti. And then further it will be explained that you actually don't have to go from karma yoga to Ashtanga yoga to bhakti. No. In fact, you don't even have to start from karma yoga. You can even start bhakti from the point of vikarma. You can be a sinner and begin the process of bhakti. And bhakti is so powerful that it will purify anyone who practices it from all unwanted things, including the sinful mentality. So this is the wonderful presentation of Krishna, that we should actually just be concerned with devotion to the Supreme Lord. So, but different people have different levels of consciousness. And according to their level of consciousness, they will plug in better in different forms of yogas. Okay, so the ignorant, they are called here Bala. What is a Bala? Bala is a child. Those who are ignorant of the goal, they are considered children, which means here in that particular meaning here means ignorant, because children have less knowledge. So those who are ignorant, they consider that all these yogas are different, but they are not different. They are leading to the same place. However, we can also discriminate that Bhakti Yoga is superior to the other yogas. And if one has to choose between the path of karma and the path of Sankhya, one should remain on the path of karma because it is natural. And renunciation will come gradually. And once it comes, then one moves on to more spiritual type of activities. So we'll stop here with speaking and we'll hear if there are any questions.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Mataji. Are there any questions? I don't see any questions yet. Please unmute yourself and ask your question.
No questions?
I had a question, Mataji, on Sankhya Yoga, but then you said it will be revealed in the next chapter. So,
So you can ask your question. The
okay.
next chapter is about Ashtanga Yoga, not Sankhya Yoga.
Sorry. So, Sankhya Yoga and Karma Yoga and Ashtanga Yoga. So, Sankhya Yoga is for those who are still looking out for the roots, for still looking out for Krishna and the transcendental knowledge. While the Karma Yoga are people who are doing their karmas, but they will still have reactions to whatever karmas they do. They still are not doing our karmas, are they?
No. Those who are practicing karma, they act selfishly for themselves and they don't perform sacrifices, particularly unto Lord Vishnu. So they get reactions to their activities. But karma yoga means akarma. One performs the same activities as the karmis, basically. One will work a particular type of work according to one's material qualities. One will be engaged in a work, and the work will produce some fruit. Either some Lakshmi will come, or some particular type of produce will be there, some product, all kinds of things. One will manufacture something or whatever. But the karma yogi understands that he should not act selfishly, but he should simply perform his activities, including maintaining his family and so on. The karma yogis are mostly grihastas. Path of karma is for the grihastas because grihastas have to work. Those who are not married, who do not have children, even if they don't work, they are the only ones who are bothered. Maybe they need less, but they don't really have to work much. But those who have a family, who have the responsibility of children, they must work. And if they work selfishly, they produce reactions. So the path of karma yoga says that whatever fruit of your activities comes, you must offer that in sacrifice. You must offer that in sacrifice. So there is procedure for that. That just like what we do, we offer food to Krishna before we eat. So if we eat the food without offering, we take the karma for all the vegetables we have killed or whatever. But if we offer it to Krishna, then the karma is gone. So karma yoga is like that. There is no reaction because one offers the fruit to Krishna. One develops the understanding that one is not the owner, not the proprietor of one's house, of one's children, of one's wealth. Um, One is not the doer. So one develops that kind of consciousness, and because when we offer things in sacrifice instead of enjoying them selfishly, and we act out of duty, as we said, it generates knowledge, it generates goodness, and it generates knowledge. and it generates detachment, right? Because suppose you earn a certain amount of money and you are going to give a part of it to a temple, or you are going to engage it in some activity which is not meant for your griha, but it's meant for another purpose. It's serving the purpose of the Lord. So naturally, when you give the Lakshmi away, or you give a part of your whatever you have manufactured away, you cultivate detachment. So one who practices this again and again and again and again, year after year after year after year, in the end, that person is detached. And what is the ultimate detachment? It is detachment from the body. So detachment from the body means knowledge. When we actually understood that I am not this body. So this is the fruit of karma yoga. So usually grihasthas engage in karma yoga. See, what Krishna is describing in the first 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita is the progressive path of elevation. It's a progressive path of elevation. And there's a whole science to it. It is very much intricately connected with Varnashram, the system of Varnashram. There are 4 Varnas, 4 ashramas. So the grihasthas will mostly practice karma yoga. And the retired grihasthas who accept vanaprastha ashram, they will engage either in Sankhya yoga or in Ashtanga yoga to further purify themselves. Having understood, they have come to the conclusion that they are not this body. And then they will engage in a transcendental form of yoga to cultivate their knowledge further. So it's a very intricate system. We can go over it one day, how it all works together. And one becomes elevated, one becomes purified. There is an elevation through the varnas, from the lower qualities of nature dominated by bodies which are dominated by the mode of ignorance. By practicing karma and then karma yoga, one elevates oneself gradually, and birth after birth, one gets rid of the lower modes of nature. One gets rid of ignorance. And so the names that have been given is Shudra, Vaishya, Kshatriya, Brahmana. We know these names. So this refers to different kinds of bodies which are influenced by the 3 modes of material nature. So the lower bodies are influenced by ignorance. And when one purifies oneself through the process of sacrifice, then one burns the ignorance, and one takes a birth in a body which has more abilities. That is a Vaishya body. It has more abilities. You can think better. You can be more responsible. And then, if you continue to perform sacrifices, then you burn completely the ignorance, and you end up one day emerging in a passionate body, which practically has hardly any ignorance, and the abilities are superior, and these are the administrative abilities in man. And then you continue the system of sacrifice, and you carry on. And you have to understand that this is a system that elevates the consciousness, purifies the consciousness over many lifetimes. It's not just one life in each Varna, it's many lives in each Varna. It's a very gradual purification. And then finally, one takes birth with the Brahminical qualities, which means one has become an intellectual, and one can think straight, one can understand the Shastra, and one can really then develop detachment and walk on the spiritual path completely. And this is intricately connected with the uh, ashrams, in the sense that those who are in the Shudra Varna, they have access only to one ashram, which is the Grihastha ashram. And those who are of Vaishya quality, they have access to two ashrams only, which is that they may practice celibacy in youth and enter the brahmachari ashram for some time. And then they move on to the grihastha ashram, and that's it. And those who are of Kshatriya nature, they have three ashrams. They have access to three ashrams, which means in youth, they are in the brahmachari ashram, they go to the Gurukul, they learn from a spiritual master, and they are educated. And then they move on to the Grihastha ashram, because big load of passion. And then they are able to retire. Now, the capacity to retire from married life is not there in everyone. If there is too much attachment and too much ignorance, one cannot renounce. Of course, in this age of Kali, people don't even get married. That's another thing. This is called vikarma. It's a lower category of existence. But if people manage to get married, it's either they don't get along and they can't wait for the day it's going to end, or they get along too well, and then they celebrate their, you know, um, 20th anniversary of marriage, then 30th anniversary of marriage, then 40th anniversary of marriage, then 50th anniversary of marriage, and it never comes to their mind that actually you could move on to a different stage, because whatever you had to achieve through married life is done and you could move further. But that requires to be free from ignorance. And so those who are of the administrative class or the warrior class, they are capable of this. They give up at some point the responsibilities of family life, and they move on to retired life, in which they simply concentrate on spiritual life. And then there is a fourth ashram, the fourth varna, which is the Brahmana varna. And those who are Brahmins, in other words, they are controlled by the mode of goodness predominantly. They are very intelligent. So these persons, they have access to all the four ashrams. So not only they retire from family life, but they take up the order of sannyas, which means basically renouncing all material activities and engaging in activities which are meant for the spiritual welfare of others. And usually they become preachers, they become teachers of the science of God. So this spreads over quite some lifetimes. And to become a Brahmin is not the goal of life. One must become a Vaishnava. One must become a devotee of God. one must attain prema bhakti. So that is the highest goal. And the magic of the path of bhakti is that everyone can attain that goal of prema bhakti, even if they originally are in a Shudra Varna. They can also have access to prema bhakti. But through a process, the prema bhakti, the practice of bhakti yoga is also a process of purification. So it's not that Srila Prabhupada gave Brahminical initiation to Shudras. He did not. Those who initially join can be either sinners, they can be Shudras, when they take up the process of bhakti. But by the process of bhakti, they become purified of the influence of the lower modes of nature, and they actually become Brahmins in one lifetime. That is a big difference between bhakti and the gradual process. In one lifetime, one can elevate oneself. We see that always. We see that this is what happens to us devotees. Many people, when we join, we are completely unaware, ignorant, and by hearing and following, we change. We completely change. We become clean. We become regulated just by following the sadhana of bhakti yoga. So this is the topmost path. And that's the path which is recommended by the Bhagavad Gita. The path of direct surrender to Krishna. Sarva dharman parityajya mami kam sharanam vraja. Krishna says, you just surrender unto me. And that's the path of bhakti.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. We have learned as well that it doesn't take one life, but lots of life changes in a particular ashram. So that is really thought-provoking for me today. So thank you very much. Are there any other questions? There are no questions on the chat, but kindly unmute yourself or raise your hand if you have a question. I don't think there are any other questions, Mataji. People are still chewing on what you have given us today.
Yes, maybe it was not very well explained, so people are a little confused, like Arjuna. Arjuna was confused at this stage, so maybe we are also confused.
So if they're confused, this is the time to ask and clarify, like I was confused and my doubt was clarified. But maybe next time. Mansi Ganga Mataji.
No, I'm thinking the people are not confused. They're just kind of absorbing that Prashantamataji they're seeing after how many weeks, you know?
Yeah.
So they're just overcoming the shock of seeing you.
That's true as well. That's true as well. We are very, very happy to have your association.
Yeah, so they're not
Really
confused. Yeah, they're just overwhelmed that she's with us, so they have nothing to say.
Well, I miss you too.
That's so nice. Thank you, Mataji.
Yes, so
Anyway,
I'll hand over to Path Prabhuji. Path Prabhuji, can you please?
Yes, Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Path
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna. Hare Krishna, Mataji. We are happy, so much happy to see you after a long time, Mataji. And in the auspicious month of Kartik, you are still so busy, but you're giving us time. We are so grateful to you. Also, same time, Mansi Ganga Mataji also arranging this wonderful program and coordinate with you. Also, thanks to Mansi Ganga Mataji. And it's a very nice and a very interesting class also about Bhakti and Karma Yoga. So on behalf of his Eldorate, I request everyone, please unmute yourself. And for glorification of Mataji, please chant Hare Krishna mantra once. So please everyone join. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna
Hare
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 Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare
Rama
Rama
Rama,
Hare
Hare
Rama
Hare.
Hare
Vancha kalpa tarubhya
Kripa Sindhu Bheva Chandra
Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. हर ग्रेस प्रसन्नता माता जी की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, पाय गौर हरि प्रेमानंदे, हरि हरि बोल, हरि बोल. Thank you very much, माता जी.
Hare Krishna. Wish everybody a good week ahead, and Krishna willing, we can meet next
Yes.
Saturday.
Yeah, next Saturday.
Yes,
You'll tell
next
us about the Damodar Ashtakam in Kartik month.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes,
Hare
all right.
Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, माता जी.